weekend would be a good weekend to do it.
I was talking with my wife, and I don't think it's the best idea for you to do it before at any time that's near to the competitions.
That's true.
Because it has been known to fuck up your stomach.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I've heard you spend about a day out of commission after you eat it. So
right,
can't
right.
wait.
Oh man, but let's get into our next story. It's on Obama's national security advisor, Stuart Seldowitz, being a racist pig on the halal street food that Comrade Sebastian earlier on in the day told us that he's been to. So let's watch this video from Loki, Comrade Loki, who does tremendous work for Mint Press News and other outlets. Let's give this video a watch that contextualizes who Stuart Seldowitz is and shows how he is, in actuality, not just this sort of outlier, but he's a product of the capitalist imperialist system, a system that, when it needs certain economic ends achieved, it has to always dehumanize whoever becomes the new enemy in order to achieve those economic ends, whether it's the Palestinian people, whether it's the Russian people, the Chinese people, whoever it is. Racism, xenophobia, the hatred of the other, the otherization of people from abroad, becomes a necessary phenomenon for capitalism. It's not what drives affairs, but it becomes an epiphenomenal, so a necessary component of the drive, the economic drives, because it's what allows people to put their guard down, dehumanize the victims, and consent to the criminal actions that are being carried forth by the imperialists. So here's Loki doing what he does best, speaking truth to power. Let's listen in.
Now, we've all seen this footage of Stuart Seldowitz abusing a street vendor in New York.
If we killed 4,000 Palestinian kids, you know what? It wasn't enough.
But who is Stuart Seldowitz, and what has he been a part of for all of these years? Stuart Seldowitz, the 3-time recipient of the State Department's Superior Honor Award. He served in the State Department in their Office of Israel and Palestine Affairs as Deputy Director during the Bush years. This racist man had a role in managing the lie of the two-state solution. The two-state solution that was the subterfuge through which Palestinians have been continually battered by years of Israeli occupation. The PR drive around the world, the mirage for a future that never existed. Stuart Seldowitz also was a national security advisor to President Obama, the same President Obama who led the NATO intervention of Libya, which saw the country bombed 7,000 times in a 6-month period, that led to Libyans trying to escape and drowning in the Mediterranean. His words are not just frivolous sentences coming out of the mouth of a racist. They are actual policy.
In Egypt, we'll get your parents.
Go.
Does your father like his fingernails? They'll take them out one by one.
When he speaks so easily of fingernails being removed by pro-Israel and pro-US dictators, he is not simply using poetic flair. He means people have their fingernails removed by those who are merely satraps of the US empire. What we heard on the streets of New York was an articulation of what has been effectively US policy towards the region throughout the time that gentleman has been employed by the US State Department. But beyond the outrage and the immediate association of Stuart Seldowitz,
he was wearing like 2 outfits in the videos. How many times have they caught this guy saying some ridiculous racist pig shit by a fucking halal cart?
Right?
How many times did it have to happen before he went viral? Jesus Christ.
It's insane. This guy is a menace to society, but he's the
You can tell he's also
running our
unstable.
society. What?
You can tell he's got some screws loose as well.
Yes.
but-
Yes. He was at
with
what was he under the? Did he serve under Bush or only under Obama?
I think only under Obama.
Okay, interesting.
Not sure.
Because people always portray Bush as the one who was kind of a psycho, had a few screws loose, but Obama
As a national
was,
security advisor, by the way,
Gotcha.
under Obama.
versus Obama was the better maintainer of empire. He put a good smiling face on the empire, but behind the scenes he had pure psychopaths running his policy.
Right.
The US government, Obama and Bush, and bipartisan necropolitics of US empire, let's also look at the place that listed him as an employee at the time of his harassment of this man on the streets of New York. Stuart Seldowitz was listed as an employee of Gotham Government Relations. This is a lobby group for hire that has very close connection to the Israeli government. Shai Franklin, a key figure at Gotham Government Relations, was simultaneously employed by the Israel-Kosovo Chamber of Commerce and has gone to great lengths to state his support for Israel throughout this horrendous war on Gaza.
The comrade here, Daniel, says Stuart Seldowitz worked under 3 U.S. presidents, Clinton, Bush, Obama. There you go. So these are individuals produced by the systems. They're not these like outliers. We have to ask, like, what society produces these racist pigs, and what society allows them to be in these positions of power? And it's a society that needs a systematic otherization of whoever becomes the new target of empire. Last year it was Russia. Like, the racism that we've seen against Russian people has just been horrific. Constantly it's the DPRK. The stories that are told to dehumanize the Korean people are just horrific. Now it's the Palestinians, and it's always one group, and it just ends up reoccurring. But the dehumanization part of it is essential. There's this great episode from the show Black Mirror, where they had to like inject the officers with something so that when they saw the people that they had to massacre and that they were occupying, what they saw were monsters, like literal monsters instead of people. And for one of these guys, the chip fails, and they end up seeing what is real, which is that, oh shit, these are people, and it causes mayhem. And the reality is that without this racist dehumanization, it's very hard for human beings to carry out these sorts of actions, or to support the carrying out of these sorts of actions against other human beings. Our sort of instinctual reaction is, when we see the dead Palestinian baby, we're like, holy fuck, whatever is causing this, we should fight to stop it. And you have to be very twisted in the mind, confused, and working under various forms of false consciousness to be like, okay, this is good. Or to do the sort of videos that we see from Israel of people like with a baby toy making fun, mocking the mothers, the grandmothers, the fathers that have had to held their dead baby, their massacred baby, in their hands.
Yeah. I don't even have anything else to add. We can just play the video.
Even helping to organize pro-Israel demonstrations that were attended by Seldowitz himself. In addition to that, you have the case of Gary Ackerman, a US congressman, registered as an employee of Gotham Government Relations. Now, when Gary Ackerman was in US Congress, his relationship with AIPAC was so close and so well known that he even intervened and assisted in the release of an Israeli prisoner of war. You also have Gotham Government Relations on record attending a celebration for Israel's 70th anniversary at the United Nations alongside Danny Danon, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations. You also have Gotham Government Relations working for Donald Trump in his first presidential campaign. And during that time, it was alleged that Gotham Government Relations paid actors $50 each to be part of a cheering crowd for Donald Trump, the president.
So now,
Stuart Seldowitz is not an
now we know the kind of people who are showing up to these Israel rallies. It's former U.S. State Department officials and people that they paid to show up. And someone earlier said these people don't just serve one term, they show up for multiple. Yeah, the people behind the scenes are like that, like Elliot Abrams, John Bolton, Mike Pompeo. We thought these people were gone with the Bush administration, but they come back. And a lot of the people who served under Obama are now the people serving under Joe Biden. These absolute ghouls, these managers of empire.
Absolutely.
Aberration. He is part of a wider push across these last decades that have seen genocidal wars visited upon people of Western Asia, the Middle East, and further afield. It has seen people of Afghanistan eviscerated by NATO's occupation. It's seen people of Iraq bombed with depleted uranium, which would ensure that future generations were likely to be born in horrific circumstances, and an increase of cancer, which was even larger than that left in Hiroshima. The wars that Stuart Seldowitz and his government exacted upon the rest of the world caused unspeakable human suffering. And so the ideas that we hear and revile at when he spoke them to a street vendor in New York were not merely poetic flair, they were actual policy.
Great point.
I know there's people saying that he's not, that he's in his right mind, but if you're not from the hood and you're wearing a hat like that, there's no way you're doing okay in the dome. There's just no way.
He's a whack job. He's a whack job who happens to be in a position of power, who happened to be born into a powerful family and worked his way up, or maybe has some skills that aid the State Department, but you can tell that guy is not all right in the head.
And that's who the system rewards.
Yep.
These maniac, vampire, opportunists that for the slightest bit of personal benefit are willing to let whole populations, whole people die. So here's Max Blumenthal. He says that Stewart, he's not only anti-Arab, but he's been seen harassing Russian diplomats in New York City, asking, how does it feel to be a criminal? So let's give this a 6-second video. Watch.
How does it feel to be a criminal? You're not answering my question.
This fucking guy. There is a slight bit of justice in the world because he was fired from his job. Former Obama administration advisor Stuart Seldowitz has been taken into police custody following hate assaults against the Halal cart in Manhattan that were caught on camera and caused outrage. The question is, had this not gone viral and shown the sort of people that are allowed to work for the empire for 20 years plus, would this sort of justice had occurred? By the way, this guy's arrested for the racist things he said against a halal cart owner, but not for any of the crimes that he was complicit in that have led to millions of deaths, of displacements.
He got arrested for expressing the views of the U.S. State Department in a one-on-one conversation, right? The sort of xenophobic views that the U.S. Ruling classes use to justify their mass murder and their imperialism and theft of resources and labor abroad. He expressed that xenophobia in a conversation, and that's what got him arrested. Right? Not the fact that he's used xenophobia to justify genocide and horrific crimes and the destruction of Libya, which low-key, the presenter here mentioned that a lot of people drowned trying to cross the Mediterranean. There were also concentration camps that were set up with funding from European countries where they were capturing people before they could get to the Mediterranean and putting them in a concentration camp, putting them in a jail, because Europe didn't want to deal with all the Libyan refugees who they created. So that's the kind of stuff that this guy has perpetrated his entire career, and he's gotten off scot-free until he felt too confident and started harassing a halal vendor.
Absolutely.